In our journey to find ways to raise the Birthright units with bad starts, we come to Chapter 8, the only desert map that's required to be completed in any of the 3 campaigns. Desert terrain is more difficult to cross than regular terrain. Most units will spend 2 points of movement to cross a single desert tile. Any horse-mounted units or mechanists will have to spend 3 points of movement. Silas is hurt by terrain even more than other units. His elbow room skill that gives +3 damage dealt doesn't activate in desert terrain. Fortunately for us, not all of our units suffer movement penalties. Most unmounted magically focused classes and flyers aren't hindered by desert terrain. This means Sakura, Felicia, Jacob, and Tsubaki, along with our new recruits Orochi, Azama, and Hinoka, will all be able to move like it was any other map. Thanks to the Dragon Veins, not all of the map will be staying desert terrain either. Activating them will turn any desert terrain near them into standard terrain. They're also conveniently placed 5 tiles apart, so Sakura can just walk up to them and trigger them on turns 1 and 2. Even in her base class, though you've probably noticed that my Sakura here isn't in her base class. She used the one and only heart seal that's available in Birthright up to chapter 13. She reclasses into Sky Knight, and that's something that I really don't recommend doing. There are units that will return a much better return on this investment, but that's a topic for next time. And the point of this series is to explore Birthright units with bad starts, so let's see what we can do with Combat Sakura in this clear. Of course, she won't be the only unit that will be raising this chapter. Along with feeding Sakura a few levels, we'll be getting Silas to C support with Kaze, we'll be giving lots of favoritism to Setsuna, while getting her to a C support with her future husband Tsubaki, and we'll be letting Orochi wreak havoc on this map's Oni savages. So what are we waiting for? Let's begin. We're starting the map by having Sakura activate the Dragon Vein. We deployed her 5 spaces away from it so that everyone's positioning would be the same even if you didn't use the heart seal on her. The Oni Savage paired with the Diviner can't move, but getting rid of them early keeps us from having to backtrack later. The Oni Savage is surprisingly bulky with 28 HP and 11 defense, and the pair-up bonus gets him to 11 speed, so doubling him just isn't going to happen with most units. Since Rinka attacked him first, his resistance was sealed just enough to let Orochi kill him. The next thing we'll be doing is recruiting a few new units. We'll get Korin over to Hinoka using Tsubaki's movement. A samurai just happens to be in a convenient spot to attack on the way. From here, Tsubaki has just enough movement to get Korin to Hinoka this turn. We wouldn't want their actions to go to waste, so we transfer Tsubaki to Azama and have Korin pair up with her sister. Hinoka flies up to drop Korin near an Oni Savage. Azama moves Tsubaki closer to the action. Conveniently, he boosts Setsuna's hit rate, and he provides a dual strike as she takes a shot at the samurai. Her odds of hitting aren't particularly good, but the samurai has healing AI. He'll run to a healer next turn instead of attacking, so this move isn't dangerous. In an attempt to ship another samurai, Saizo gets an unfortunate crit. This means Jacob won't be able to take the kill for himself. Silas and Kaze will be starting their support chain this map. They also happen to complement each other well as power partners. Kaze gives Silas speed and movement, while Silas boosts Kaze's attack and bulk.
That was a good fight. No need to thank me.
Entering enemy phase, this Diviner maximizes his damage by attacking Rinka. A samurai chips Kaze, the only unit in his range.
Together we stop the veil.
This Oni Savage takes the bait we left for him. Kaze takes out another diviner, which makes our lives a lot easier next turn.
Accept my help. Stay strong. Just in time. Your battle has ended.
And finally, an archer gets baited into position by Rinka. This turn, we'll focus on getting Orochi some kills. The first of them will be the Samurai.
All in the cards.
Azura isn't in range to refresh Orochi, but pairing up makes that a non-issue. We're using the other Dragon Vein this turn to let the enemies move further so they'll get to us earlier. There's a tile that all three of these Oni savages can reach, and it happens to be right next to Sakura. Orochi equips an Ox Spirit so she can maximize her damage to them. We bring back Silas to have him clean up the stragglers. His high movement will let him get back to the front lines next turn.
We made it.
Jacob stands next to Orochi. His aura gets stacked on top of Sakura's for a total damage reduction of 4 per hit. Hinoko using Korn's dual strike sets up nicely to defeat Setsuna.
This is my chance.
Trust me.
All done.
Azama can heal Korin, but using his turn to unpair leaves us with more options next turn.
I am at your service. Now we can breathe easy.
This turn, Orochi will be showing off the benefits of having a good enemy phase. After being given tonics for both magic and speed, along with an Ox Spirit and Hana's +4 speed pair up bonus, she can kill all of the unpaired Oni savages in one round of combat. She normally wouldn't be able to survive 2 hits from them, but she's under the effects of both damage reducing auras. This brings the damage from Iron Club attacks down from 11 to 7. Being paired up means she also has access to the guard gauge, and since she doubles each opponent, each round of combat builds 6 charges. This effectively lets her block every other attack that comes her way after the first event activates. This turns what would normally be a suicidal move into an opportunity for a lot more experience.
We're all right. Maybe next time. Woo!
Even though their threat range tells us they can move, the paired up enemies in this map just don't. We start our next turn getting rid of this Oni Savage with Orochi.
I'm here. Well,
Now that we've taken care of all the biggest threats in this chapter, the rest of this clear will mostly be cleanup duty. We'll have more than enough opportunities to train our underleveled units.
Together we shall prevail.
Orochi getting this kill leaves her in range of a lot of enemies, but Fuga doesn't move, and the Diviners barely do any damage to her. She isn't facing anything close to a chance of death. Moving to the other side of the map, Tsubaki chips an archer. You can probably guess who will be feeding the kill to. Setsuna takes advantage of Azama's unrestricted movement to get herself into position. This clear is focusing on getting her support rank with Tsubaki up, so we're trying to get them to see combo with each other often. Getting Setsuna to an S support as soon as possible is extremely important, primarily because she's without a doubt one of the worst units in all of Birthright. I'd even say she's in contention for being one of the worst units in all of the 3DS Fire Emblem games. The fewer maps you have to spend making sure she and her partner gain enough support points, the better. Unlike in Conquest, where having access to the Archer class can do wonders for a unit's viability, having a good enemy phase in Birthright is far more important for a combat unit, especially later in the game. She specializes in speed, one of the stats that's the easiest to boost in Birthright, thanks to the endless supply of units that can provide speed pair-ups and rally speed. And she throws every other stat in the trash, including strength and defense, which are comparatively a lot harder to boost in Birthright. Before class changing, she's locked to the Archer class line, and there just aren't any good one-range bows in Birthright. This means she won't be able to do things like getting 3 kills on an enemy phase in the same way that even an extremely frail and slow unit like Orochi can. At least, if you support her enough. While she can technically grow into the kind of 1-2 range juggernaut you'd want during Birthright's late game, her terrible strength and bulk growths means she'd be worse at the job than any other unit in the game. Setsuna isn't without redeeming qualities though, and I'm not just talking about the +7 speed and +1 movement pair bonus she can give to her husband if she's in the Master Ninja class. The best reason to raise her is because she takes part in some of the most entertaining support conversations in the game. That alone should get you to look past all of her flaws as a unit and train her during every playthrough, giving her a different husband in each one so you can see all of her supports. On the topic of training, we've also been training Orochi a lot during this clear. She has the distinction of being tied with Elise for having the highest personal magic growth in the game. With enough training and investment, she can use this to make some really funny builds possible if you choose to invest in her. She's also the unit that enables capturing, though Birthright's capturables are far less interesting than Conquest's. Unless you're giving yourself extra resources through modding or visiting a lot of castles, captured units usually aren't very game-changing if you've gone through enough maps to persuade a person her. Capturing does still have some very important uses though. It can get you some extra users of the Noreen rallies, particularly strength and defense. To my knowledge, capturables are the only way to get rally strength outside of fighter talent Korin and their partner and children, rank of marrying Oni talent Korin, giving Shura 3 levels in Berserker, or buying skills from the unit logbook or online castles. It's not particularly important to raise Orochi just for capturing though, since with a bit of preparation, Orochi can probably capture any relevant enemy, even if you've barely leveled her. Just make sure you stack her magic and cripple the enemy through things like Poison Strike and Seal Resistance.
Oh, thank goodness!
Moving on to Sakura, if you look at her in a vacuum, she really isn't an impressive unit. Her starting class is staff locked, and the one reclassing option she has access to is Sky Knight. It's one of the worst combat classes in the game, having a lower strength and defense stat than Villager. Even with stats and growth as good as hers, her natural class line really holds her back. For a while, Sky Knight Sakura is effectively just a worse Tsubaki from a combat perspective. To add insult to injury, she doesn't have access to any of the bulky promoted tome classes naturally. She can only get into Basara through marriage, and she can't even get into the better Oni Chieftain class without devoting Korin's gender, talents, and marriage partner to getting her there. Combat really isn't what makes Sakura useful though. Her quiet strength skill opens up new possibilities for approaching enemy phase. If you keep her as a Shrine Maiden, you're probably going to want to have a healer or two on your team anyways, so why not let her fill the role? And if you're using her as a Sky Knight, she'll have a much easier time keeping up with the pace that you're moving your units at, and she can provide her aura from hard to reach places without being vulnerable to attack. Her natural class line also gives her access to the triple rally of luck, magic, and speed, and rallying is conveniently something she can provide at the same distance as her personal skill. Nothing she does is completely game-changing, but you might be surprised by how often her utility can come in handy. Jacob chips the archer, leaving him surrounded. The only unit he can attack during enemy phase is Setsuna. Orochi continues to one-round Oni savages. After some level ups increased her magic, she can use the more accurate Wrath Spirit now.
As I expected.
Now that she has Darting Blow, Sakura can double and potentially one-round the Diviners in this map.
Please forgive us.
Enemies using healing staves can be abused for a bit of chip experience, but I'd rather keep the extra uses of the rod that she's dropping for myself. Staff-locked units give reduced experience, so our trainees won't benefit too much from the skill anyways. Saizo acts as a more reliable source of chip damage on the samurai. Setsuna finally gets to see some enemy phase action. This samurai unfortunately goes for Orochi instead of Sakura. In situations where attacking either target will lead to death, enemies generally go for higher expected damage.
Favors me.
Alright, let's go.
We could clear this map this turn, but I'd prefer to spend a bit more time feeding Setsuna and Sakura some kills. Here, Hinoka's Dual Strike acts as a backup in the event that Setsuna's attack misses.
Oh, it's dead. Glad to help.
Azuma also sees a chance to get some much needed staff experience.
I'm with you.
Healing Setsuna would have made it so that she doesn't have to face as many chances of death, but healing higher leveled units gives just a bit more experience, so we're living dangerously. Sakura continues to assert her dominance over this map's diviners.
Allow me.
Very much appreciated.
Silas attacking Fuga here and leaving himself open during enemy phase looks risky, but his full guard gauge means he won't be facing a chance of death.
Show me what you got. Don't scare me like that. Leave it to me.
We left Silas as the only enemy in Fuga's range, so he stays equipped with a one-range steel katana. Now it's time to milk this turn for heal experience and 2-range chip experience before we feed the kill to Setsuna. While we've got some time to fill, let's talk a bit about the last pairing we're working on, the Kaze Silas support. Kaze can dip into the Cavalier line for a nice +3 damage boost from Elbow Room and access to Shelter, but the main beneficiary of the support is Silas, one of the few units in Birthright that has both access to the Soul skill and the necessary attack and bulk to use the skill in conjunction with the 1-2 range class like Master Ninja. This combination is excellent in Conquest, but in the more enemy phase heavy maps of Birthright's late game, where enemies are more threatening because of their stats rather than their skills, units like Soul and Master Ninja Silas really do stand out. Getting Silas to the point where he's juggernauting through Birthright's late game isn't difficult either. As the only unit in Birthright besides his daughter that starts as a Cavalier, he'll probably be deployed in most maps anyways just because of how incredible Shelter is, especially when you want to train underleveled units or skill dip. Having 7 move as a Cavalier on top of that just makes it even easier to get ahead of other units, and the Cavalier class has the privilege of having access to 2 weapon types, meaning he can use effective weapons in more scenarios than most other units. Getting him to start snowballing really doesn't take much extra effort. He does need some speed support to reach his full potential before going Master Ninja, but Kaze and most of his relevant potential wives give speed pair-ups anyways, so reaching speed benchmarks usually isn't a huge issue. The correct play here is to leave Azura's action free in case both Setsuna and her dual strike partner miss, but even if that does happen, we can still feed the kill to Sakura. Surely at least one of these two will hit, right?
Take your time. A shameful end.
The boss kill gets Setsuna her 3rd level of the map, and it's exactly what you'd expect from a Setsuna level up. That's chapter 8 done in 6 turns. That's just 2 turns slower than the low turn count strategy, and one of them was just because we slowed down to feed Setsuna and Sakura a bit before the boss kill. In these 6 turns, Silas and Kaze reach C support, Sakura's gone from level 3 to level 5, Orochi's gone from level 5 to level 8, and finally, Setsuna's gone from level 3 to level 6 while reaching a C support with Tsubaki. Raising these units past their bad starts really doesn't have to be slow and boring, even in maps that seem designed to slow you down. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe, because next time, we'll have 2 more children to feed.